So let's go ahead and get started officially here. So the conversation today is around AI, and throughout the presentation today, there is a lot of AI imagery. For example, this imagery here that you see on the screen, this is an AI image. This young lady doesn't exist, but as we all know, AI is doing some pretty incredible things, and that's what I want to share with you today. This is material that I've had to condense into the amount of time that we have available and focused in on just a few of the many things that we're seeing as an organization as we work with print companies around the world, but particularly here in North America. So as I said, my name is Dave Rosendahl. I do exist. This is definitely not an AI-generated face. What you see is what you get with this here. I co-founded MindFire, and I'm also co-founder to these 4 kids here, also not AI-generated, but beautiful kids that my wife and I have an opportunity to bring into this world here. Honestly, folks, I never expected to be in print. I started my life as a musician. Here I am at 14 playing a piano concerto. I started playing piano when I was very young, but then around the age of 15 or so, I had my first of many midlife crises, and I went from one keyboard to the other. So from music to technology, and threw myself into understanding internet and the way the web was starting to work back in those days. Around senior year of high school, I founded an internet service provider where we offered unlimited dial-up internet service. For those of you who remember the turn of the century and the technology that we had available, you probably remember that sound. So those are the kinds of modems and technology that we used back then to offer dial-up internet service. Now, as we were doing that, a local paper came along and did a story on us. Since we were about 100 feet away from the beach in Newport Beach, California, which is where I'm from, they told us to wear a business professional on top and board shorts on the bottom. So I went over to a store and got myself a dress shirt, didn't have one at the time. And you can see my sweet hair here. I had much more hair back then in those days. But from that article, a local .com company, this was around the time the .coms were going nuts, saw what we were doing and purchased the company. And then I went to another organization where we were offering websites to small businesses. Now you have to remember, back in these days, the technology that we're talking about is not what it is today. But as we were offering these website services, we went from a few websites per week to about 1,000 a week. And in those days, the technology didn't yet exist to create dynamic websites. We're going to be talking a lot about data today and the power that AI has in that realm. But this was the first place I got a taste for what you can do with a database and dynamic content. I know it probably sounds easy to talk about dynamic content, dynamic websites today as it pertains to landing pages and as it pertains to direct mail and other print. But in those days, it was pretty advanced. That went along pretty well until we got busted by the FTC, not from anything I did. That's another story for another time. I escaped out the back door. Here I am. This is how AI perceived me to look. This is also an AI-generated image. I'm going to tell you more about these images in just a moment. But after I escaped, that's when we started MindFire. I found a few folks that wanted to try to leverage the power of the internet and direct marketing. We really didn't know specifically what area we were going to go into, but along came an agency and they presented us this direct mail problem. And I never really considered direct mail, never imagined that I would be working with pixels on one side and ink on the other side, but that's what happened. And what we started to realize is that if you look at the blue line here, this is the amount of money being spent on print, and the red line being the amount spent on digital advertising. Around the time we started this, there were 35,000-ish print companies, depending on how you count. Now we know the number's less than that. There was around 20 billion being spent in digital advertising. Now it's well over 250 billion, 270 billion, in that range. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because the internet and the technology that we're talking about was transformative. And so I believe that, again, today, as we sit here talking with one another, we're at another crossroads. We're at another fork in the road, if you will, another dividing point. Nobody knows exactly where this is going to end up, but I believe there are clues that you can use to understand how to further your business. And so today, what I'm going to be sharing with you, the insights that I want to share with you, are those that I think are going to give you a snapshot of a few things that you can begin to apply in your thinking and in your businesses. And I'm pulling all of that from the work that we do with printers across North America. We work with some of the largest direct mail printers and print companies all the way down to, the smaller ones on the $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in revenue size. So a vast spectrum of organizations that we are able to look at and understand how they're employing this technology and how you can as well. Many of the top direct mail printers work with MindFire, but like I said, it's also the longer tail of the market out there that are also working with us. And so the vantage point that I'm bringing to you today is from looking across the industry. And like I said, I think we're at another fork in the road. And I think that AI is going to be one of those moments where we'll look back in a few years and say, wow, everything changed. That changed everything. There have been a lot of those moments over the past number of years. None of us were alive in 1882, but when Thomas Edison created electricity and started offering electricity to homes, that was a pretty pivotal moment. All of what you're seeing around here is powered by electricity, and I think that was transformative. I believe AI is as significant as that, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Some of you might remember DARPA. That was the beginning of the internet, but really everything changed when Mark Andreessen created Netscape, the first real commercial web browser. Yeah, that was in 1994, and really that's when things began to take off in terms of the web. And of course, we all remember September 11th, 2001. The world changed dramatically at that point. And so the reason I share these turning points with you is that I think November 30th, 2022, which is when ChatGPT was released, is a similar moment in the sense that while AI has been around for a while, it was the first time really that AI became usable by someone like me, someone like you, in the sense that no longer do we need to be programmers or developers. Now, because of that, it skyrocketed to 50 million users very, very quickly. I'm going to share with you how quickly that was, just to give you a sense for how enormous this tidal wave is. But to put it in context, this is the wheel. The wheel was invented about 5,500 years ago or so in Mesopotamia. And it took thousands of years to reach millions people, 50 million people. Actually, it wasn't even until around 1000 BC that the world even had that many people in it. So if you look at technologies more recently, planes took about 64 years to get there, cars 62, landlines about 50, electricity 46, credit cards 28, TV 22, ATMs 18, PCs took 14 years, cell phones 12, the internet took 7, Facebook took 4, and the explosion that we're talking about today took 1 month. 1 month to 50 million. And then guess what? 2 months, it doubled to 100 million. You may know this, or this may be the first time you're hearing these data. The point is even though AI has been around for a while, it's really ChatGPT and that interface that has made it accessible to folks like you and me. Now, I don't want to make any assumptions. Please text me right now. How many of you have used ChatGPT at least once in your life? And how many have used it in the last 24 hours? Just text me a 1 if you've used it at least once, or text me a 24 if you've used it in the last 24 hours. I want to get a sense for the room here. Okay, so I see somebody saying they've used it once. Somebody's used it in the last 24 hours. I see a 1. Keep going here. 949. If you didn't get the number, 949 375 4459. Text me there. Give me a few more. I want to see. It looks like for most of you here, you've used it at least once. That's good. Okay, keep it coming. If you can keep texting me, I appreciate that because the feedback is very helpful. 20, I think you mean 24. That's good. Okay, thank you very much, folks. That's very, very helpful. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and through the 6th grade or so, I was homeschooled. And whenever I tell my friends or my colleagues that I was homeschooled, they say, well, that explains a lot. I'm not really sure what they mean by that, but that aside, I can tell you this. When I took the SAT in 7th grade as a homeschooled kind of graduate at that point, I did better at that point than I did in high school. So this is a graph of my smartness. I got dumber over time. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because in high school, I had to use these. Does anybody remember these? I'm sure you've all seen these. Cliff Notes, right? I relied on Cliff Notes in high school. Now, the reason I say that, many of you have kids. I've got 4 kids that you saw earlier. And this is a topic for another conversation, but my goodness, if you have children that are in school right now, I don't know how they're going to cope. I don't know how teachers are going to cope with AI. My wife is a teacher, and I can tell you it's an avalanche. It's changing everything, as we talked about a moment ago. They're barely able to keep up. If I had had ChatGPT and AI in high school, I would have done a lot better, I can tell you that. But this is a significant change for education and for our kids and for how people are learning information. But for us here, just like Cliff Notes disappeared and have been replaced by new technology, the same is happening to print. It's under attack. Our primary customer base, the folks we work with most, are direct mail printers. So I'm going to be talking a lot about direct mail today. But this is applicable across the print industry. So the examples I give, think about how they apply to you. If you're not doing direct mail, or if you're under other forms of print, think about the other forms and how the things apply that we're talking about here today. But I can tell you this. Almost all of our clients, no matter how large they are, whether the top in the top 5 or they're doing $1 million a year, they're all crying out for ways to survive. They're like the zebra here being chased by the lion. And my mission, our mission at MindFire, is to help get the zebras going, escape, because there's no shortage of things trying to attack us, right? There is digital ad budget pulling money away from print, pulling money away from direct mail. There's staffing issues, right? People asking for raises, or heck, just even finding good people is tough. And frankly, the other thing that's taking away volume and that's eating into print is postage, right? Give me an X, text me an X if you agree with that. I mean, what do we have? A 7.5% increase coming here in July? It's eating into, if you do direct mail, it's eating into the budget that your customers have. So for all of these reasons, I'm here today to share with you why I think you need to be paying attention to AI. Most print companies that I speak to, most print owners, executives, feel like the zebra here on the screen, which means if you're doing direct mail, and again, this is applicable across the industry, but I'm tying this to direct mail here in this example, every piece of mail you put into this box has to work harder for you and for your client. But what I see most folks doing, most printers, most brands, is that when they send out direct response mail, they're doing so with a blindfold on. And so are their clients, by the way. Here's what I mean by that. Printers are sending mail, but most have no idea how it's connecting to the business objectives that their clients have. They're not understanding or not seeing or not able to see that connection, how well it's doing in terms of generating leads or sales. Now, you'd think that maybe the marketers behind the campaigns are able to do that, but many are not. And they pull back on what they're spending with you because in some cases, they think digital is what's driving their results. They're wrong. But without the ability to see, it's really the blind leading the blind. There's no reason for us to operate that way, unless, of course, you want to. But I suspect that nobody wants to do that intentionally. There is an entire framework, a playbook for how to, as a print organization, if you're doing direct mail or any kind of print, tie yourself into understanding and being able to see how well your marketing is doing using digital technology. That's what MindFire is all about. That's the topic of another conversation. If you want to know more about that at the end, I'll give you a way to get in touch with me, or you can text me now that you have my number. Happy to go through those details with you later. But the point is, look at the screen here. This is a $4 billion brand who, after using technology, was able to move $500,000 of their digital budget to direct mail because they could finally see what was driving the results that they needed. So this is the power of using this kind of technology. In fact, this gentleman here is going to come back in our conversation in just a moment. But even if you can see, there's still a problem, folks. What happens if a competitor shows up knocking on your client's door, who not only can see how well their marketing is working for their customer, for that brand, but what if that competitor has AI-assisted or AI-supercharged people, staff? I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. Or what if they have AI-supercharged products and services that they're offering to your customer? Are your folks going to be able to compete? I'm always thinking about risk. I'm always thinking about how do you minimize risk? How do you mitigate risks? And, I asked AI to give me an image here of somebody who just puts their head in the sand and ignores the tidal wave of AI. This is what it came up with, a beautiful picture here. But there are risks I believe, of choosing not to study the clues that are in front of us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint a picture of two ways. First, how you can supercharge your people using AI. And second, how you can supercharge a product or a service that you offer to your client. And I'm going to do that in the second case. I'm going to do that through the eyes of direct mail. But remember, again, even if you do wide format, you do other forms of printing, I want you to take these concepts and ensure that you're thinking about how they work and apply to your business. I'm going to pause for just a moment. Brian, are we good with the audio and the video? Everything good so far?
Yeah, everything's working great.
Okay, perfect. So let's start with the first use case, which is how do we supercharge our people? And there are many ways. As I was preparing for this, I really had to think hard, what's the one thing that I want to impart upon you that I think is going to be the easiest to take hold of now and have a large payback in the short term here. There's too many to list to go through all of them, but I'm sharing one with you today that if you're not using, is like having handcuffs on your folks, or even yourself working with handcuffs on. And what I'm going to show you here is going to give you a way to diminish or save 20 to 30% of your day. If you're in sales, if you're meeting with people, if you work with internal teams, if you work with an external team at your customer's location, 20 to 30% of your day back. It'll give you the ability to focus on higher value work. If you're in sales, it'll remove what I call happy years. I'll show you more in a moment as to what I mean by that. And it will improve your sales, whether you're running the company or if you're in sales. What I'm about to show you, I believe, has the ability to do all of this.
This is my calendar for the week. I'm sure you're.
What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring up a video. It just started playing there, but I'm going to bring up a video. I recorded it because I think that some of you are going to want to take this back to your team. I recorded it so that afterwards, if you want the instructions on how to do this, you can jump right to this portion of the demonstration here and use it for yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and play that video, and then I'll be right back with you live here.
This is my calendar for the week. I'm sure yours looks something like this. And so for all of the meetings that I have, let's say they're in Zoom, but this technique works in Teams, any online meeting utility. And in fact, it works in real life, like trade shows, conferences, meetings in a conference room, things like that. But today I'm just going to focus on the use case with Zoom. So this is my calendar. You set up a meeting just like you always would in Zoom. And I also use a utility called Fathom, okay? And what Fathom does is it joins your meeting just like a human participant would. It's just another participant in the meeting. And at the end of the meeting, it will create this little page here that you're seeing on the screen. Now, there's a lot of functionality it provides, a lot of cool things that it can do. That's a topic for another video if you're interested. But for today, I'm just going to focus you in on the transcript portion here. You see that? This is where the AI is going to come in extremely handy and save you hours of time per day. Let me just summarize so far what you've seen. A calendar, just like you always would have to manage your week, manage your day. Meeting invites on that calendar with Zoom, presumably, or any other utility like that. And Fathom, okay? Fathom is free, and it will join your meetings just like a human will. And then at the end of that, you will have a screen that looks like this. So now all you need to do is copy the transcript, and then I use this little utility called editpad.org. It's just an online text editor. You can use whatever you have on your computer, or you can use editpad.org and download the text file, okay? Once you've downloaded that text file, it'll be on your computer, and now you can start to use the magic of AI. What I'm going to show you is how you can take that meeting transcript from your live meeting, whether it was 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, however long it was, and use AI to extract some incredible insights out of that. So I've got the meeting export here, the text file, and I'm going to come over here to Claude. Okay, let me tell you about my friend Claude for a moment. Claude is just like ChatGPT. So if you've used ChatGPT, it's a chat interface on top of very sophisticated AI. For this use case of pulling out meaningful information from meetings like what I'm showing you today, I prefer Claude over ChatGPT. If you have questions about that, let me know in the comments. Happy to answer that. But for the purposes of what I want to show you today, use Claude. It's free. Go sign up. All you need to do now is take that meeting transcription. I'm just going to pop it in right there, right here into Claude. And now what I can do is I can ask Claude different questions. So check this out. First thing is, hey, Claude, give me a summary of this meeting in 3 bullets. Now, the reason I ask it for bullets is because I do not like reading big blobs of text. If you know anything about me, you send me a big text that's that big or an email that's big like that, I'm not going to read it. Sorry. So let's see what Claude says. Based on the meeting transcript, here's a summary in 3 bullets. This is an internal meeting that we just had. It's about an hour-and-a-half long meeting. So the team discussed whether to continue holding monthly strategic meetings. Bob was a participant in the meeting, shared insights from his first 4 customer interviews, noting that customers who are getting the most value have individual power users, so on and so forth there. And then the 3rd bullet, the team debated different customer segments to focus on. Okay, so now think about this. What if you didn't attend this meeting? You want to get a quick summary. Or what if you did and you had to step out and take a call? Or what if you did and you just can't remember, right? Maybe this meeting happened last week or a month ago. Heck, I can't even remember this meeting from yesterday, and it was only 24 hours ago. So think about the power that this provides. But let's see what else it can do. I'm going to ask it now to tell me who participated in this meeting. Maybe I've forgotten and I need a little refresher. Boom, it's done. Based on the meeting transcript, Michael, David, Anthony, Lita, Kushal, and Bob. All right. So now talking about Bob, what I'm going to ask it to do is, hey, you know what? In this meeting, summarize Bob's primary points. Limit it to the top 3. Now imagine if this is a customer interview or if this is a sales call with a prospect, right? And your prospect's name is Bob, let's imagine, right? Well, if you want to know what's important to Bob, what did Bob say? What did the stakeholders say? Look at the power of this. Here's Bob's 3 top points from the meeting about power users, something about educating customers about the power of using pearls and direct mail, that we should focus on certain segments of customers. Now, take this a step further here. Let me ask it, what questions did David ask? Give me each of his questions, clean them up so that they're concise, and the answers provided by the various participants. Clean that up too. Now, I'm pasting this in just to save time in this video, but you can literally just sit here, type out your question, just as if you were sending it to a friend, an assistant, a colleague, a teammate, and it will come back and answer you. So David asked 2 main questions during the meeting. Question 1, Bob, summarize maybe 1 or 2 key takeaways. Here's Bob's answer. The biggest takeaway is that there are 3 unique individual users among the 4 customers. Here's question number 2. Bob, if there's a takeaway now versus something that was in your mind a month ago, what is the biggest difference? And here is his answer to that. So this should give you some insight into what's possible here. But now let me get to the main use case that many of you have asked me for. And that is, after a meeting, within seconds, I am able to issue a customized summary of the meeting. And I like to put the action items at the top and then the meat of the discussion down below. Now, Fathom will do some of this automatically for you. But the reason why I like putting it into Claude is because based on the meeting and who was there and what we were talking about, I can ask it to format it in different ways that meet my particular needs. So I like putting the action items on the top. So here it's going and pulling out the action items for Bob, for Mike, and Kushal. It now is breaking down the meeting into nice, orderly bullets. I hate having to go back and look at my own chicken scratches, trying to figure out what I wrote, or take little notes in a document somewhere, or worse yet, getting somebody else's notes that don't make any sense to me, right? So here it is, breaking down the meeting into 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. Here are the next steps and bullet points for each of these. Now, let's imagine that I wanted to write an email for me that I can send to my staff about this session and include the action items with clear owners and next steps, let's just say, right? So this is another thing that I do when I want to write a follow-up customer email, follow-up email to a prospect, or a follow-up email to the team, right? It gives me the subject line that it suggests I use. It gives me the text here. Wanted to share with you the main points from our recent strategy meeting. The discussion was productive. We made some important decisions. Here are the key takeaways. Here are the action items.
All right, it ends on boom right there because I'm so excited here. I'm going to take a minute, folks. Go over to the text and give me 1-word reaction of how you're feeling after you saw that. Some of you might be using something like this. As I mentioned, some of these tools have some of this built in. Others that I speak to have no idea this is even possible. So give me 1 word there in the, okay, you use Zoom summary. I see somebody saying that. Yes, you can use Zoom summary. You can use things like Fathom. The reason this is so helpful is because you can chat with your meeting as its own entity and pull out whatever you need from it. I know Zoom summary can do something like that. I see somebody saying, cool. By the way, I have found that Claude, I mentioned this, works much better than ChatGPT and much better than some of the AI that's built into Zoom. So you may want to give that a shot. I see somebody saying, great. Yeah, this is a huge, huge time saver, folks. Keep texting me the 1-word responses there. What we have found when we've applied this and when we've taught our clients to do this, like I said, is time savings, enabling you to focus on high value activities. It removes what I call happy ears in sales, which is that you can go back and ask it, what did the prospect really say? Or what did they likely mean when they said X and Y? It removes the bias that we all have and gets right to the sentiment based on what's in the transcript. The other thing you can do with this is compare it against best practice talk tracks. What I mean by that is, if you look at the screen here, if you look at the screen on the left here is the sales script. This happens to be the sales script that we use internally. Okay, it's from we use the, what's it called? Skip Miller methodology. If you want to know more about that, happy to share that with you. On the left is the script. All right. Here on the right now, imagine that you've got the transcript like we just saw. And now all of our sales reps have a series of pre-written prompts. That's what you're seeing here on the right-hand side. I know it's tiny there. You can't see it. I'll show you what I mean in a moment, but think about it this way now. You take the script, you take the transcript, and you take the prompts here, and the prompts include one to summarize the meeting, put it in chronological order, create a follow-up email for the prospect, and give me talking points for my next meeting. You know, the thing that sales reps love doing, right, is taking notes, putting those into CRM, right? No, nobody loves that. But with these 4 pre-written prompts, you take the script, the best practice workflow that you're measuring your folks against, the transcript, those prompts, you throw them into Claude, all 3 of those, just dump them right in, and here's what comes out. This is a real life example. I happened to do this one. I was meeting with Justin. It gives me the next steps. It gives me the order of the meeting against that schematic, against that best practice workflow. It's putting things in that order so I can assess our reps or myself against the best practice steps. Here we go, steps 1 through 11, okay? Now, the other thing it can do is it's creating the follow-up email. It's got the subject line for me. It's got the body. I can insert the summary. And then here on the right are the talking points for my next meeting. Okay, so it's summarizing for me how much mail volume they do, the verticals they work on, what OEM or print equipment they have, the goals that they mentioned. Isn't that amazing? Give me your thoughts there in the chat. What are you thinking about this? I see somebody asking, can we use Claude to summarize this presentation? You betcha. It's doing it right now, in fact. Who asked that? That was a great question. How is this hitting you? Give me some feedback there. Since I can't see everyone's body language, give me some feedback in the text. So you might be thinking, what do you do with all that time, right? If you really can free up 20 to 30% of your time, which is definitely doable, what do? I asked AI to tell me what would somebody look like who's enjoying the benefits of this, and this is what it came up with here. Look at this guy. Maybe you see this guy kicking back and doing nothing, but that's not what I see. I see somebody thinking. I see somebody doing high value work. I see somebody who's not doing monkey work, taking notes, creating action items. Have the machine do that. Thomas Edison said, 5% of the people think, 10% of people think they think, and the other 85% would rather die than think. Henry Ford said, thinking is the hardest thing a person, he said man, but I crossed that out, a person can do. Probably the reason so few of them do it. So here's what I'm recommending for you and your staff. Use AI as your thought partner. Have it open in a tab on your computer, on your phone. ChatGPT has a voice interface so you can talk to it just like a person. Ask it for help, just like you're texting me, right? You can text ChatGPT and ask it a question or ask Claude a question. One of the things that people always ask me is, well, Dave, what do I say? How do I ask it what I want it to do? You just talk. It's the most highly evolved interface between a human and a computer that we have, I believe, present time. It's going to get better, but it's just like talking to a person. The other thing you can do is you can ensure that you always sound smart. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Last week, I was in a meeting with a customer. We were doing a QBR, and my chief software architect was there, and he started mentioning some technology that, frankly, I've just been too busy to try to understand. It's called Parquet. So I wanted to sound smart in the meeting. I'm giving you a little insight into how my brain works. So I ran over to Claude. I had my laptop and I said, what are the limitations of Parquet files? What are the weaknesses? Because I wanted to point at something in the meeting and sound like I really knew what I was talking about. So here it came back. It gave me 1, 2, 3, 4 specific things. And then I said, you know what? I need to ask a question that shows I understand Parquet. Give me a simple but pertinent question I can ask. I even had typos in there because I was typing it so quickly because I wanted to jump into the conversation. And it said, here's a simple but pertinent question you can ask to demonstrate your understanding of Parquet, okay? Now, this is kind of silly and it makes me look, I don't know, petty or something. The point that I'm trying to communicate here to you is that you can use this to be smarter about the work that you do. Maybe a silly example like mine, or maybe something more appropriate to the work that you're doing. In that same meeting, as an example, we were looking at a dashboard. This is a dashboard that comes out of the MindFire software, and because the customer can customize the views in so many different ways, they can create columns of data like the one you see here in red that they've made up. They've created some definition behind it. And so I asked the team, hey, what does this over under mean here? I'm accustomed to that in sports, but I don't know what that means in the context of this. And nobody knew. So I said, well, all right, I'm going to take a picture and put it into ChatGPT and I'll find out what it means. Everyone laughed at me. They're like, how can you put a picture into ChatGPT? Well, apparently no one knew that you could, but you take a snapshot with your cell phone. This is the actual snapshot. And I threw it into ChatGPT and I said, look at the over under column. What's the likely meaning of it? Came back, gave me a response. And I said, okay, well, how did you calculate that? How would it be calculated? Give me the formula based on the data that you see. And remember, this is off of a snapshot on my cell phone. Threw it into ChatGPT and asked the question. Here came back with the formula behind it. Again, simple example, folks. But my point is, it's hard enough running from the lion chasing you of postage increases, digital advertising taking print budgets away, staffing issues, right? Don't wake up one day and find another lion chasing you. And this time it's a competitor whose people are supercharged with AI and that are running laps around you, okay? That's the point I'm trying to make here is think about this now. And as you transition from thinking about how this can influence and impact your staff, let's turn the corner now to talk about what can we do as a service? How can we use AI within our service offering? And again, I'm doing this from a direct mail perspective, but it doesn't only have to be about direct mail. And I'm only using one example because we have limited time here today. So I have to pick one. So a few months back, I got a call from, remember that $4 billion direct mail manager that I had on the screen towards the beginning? If I gave you the name, you'd know the company, but I can't share it in public. And in the call, he asked me to meet him over lunch and give them some ideas on how to improve the response to their direct mail. And so we went and we met. This is how AI envisioned our meeting, if you look at the screen here. And I asked him how he felt AI would change direct mail. And the answer that he gave was surprising, although I guess in retrospect, I shouldn't have been surprised, but he had no idea. In fact, he hadn't even thought about it, to be honest. AI also gave me this image for our meeting. Looks like an entirely different kind of meeting. I don't know what's going on here. Sometimes AI does spit out funny things, but we'll leave that one right there, okay? So right then and there, I said, you know what? Let me show you, sir. And I pulled out my laptop and I created a simple mail file, just like the one you see here on the screen. Hey, if you're texting me right now, drop in DM in my text if you do direct mail. I want to have context. I want to have context for how many of you do direct mail. If you do DM, type in DM there in your text. Okay, I see one DM. I see another person typing DM. Okay, it looks like, yeah, a good number of you do direct mail. Okay, so the example that you're seeing here on the screen, simple direct mail file at the top. I just opened up Excel and did it right there in front of him. And then I happened to have this mail piece in my hand. And I said, you know, we're all accustomed to be able to doing variable data printing, right? Dear first name, dear David, dear Bob, dear Brian. That's standard, it's been around for a while. And we're all familiar with the idea of personalizing the mailer by different buckets, different demographic buckets, right? Like simple, male versus female, so on and so forth. That's standard. But I asked him, with AI, have you thought about how we can truly create one-to-one communication? And he's like, nope, haven't thought about it. So I said, all right, imagine the text here, this blurb of text with the red box around it. or the hero image up here on the right-hand side? What if you could make that specific to each individual based on what you know about them from that mail file? He was like, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. Show me what you mean. And so I did a demo right there in front of him, and I've recorded that again. I'm going to bring that up here so you can take it back to your teams. You can watch it again. Let me walk you through what I showed him, and then we'll come back and talk about it here in just a moment.
All right, so here we have the prompt for ChatGPT. A prompt is basically a set of instructions. You just write it like you would to a friend or anyone else, a colleague, a staff member. And I'm telling it, I want you to replace that blurb, that call to action text, because it's weak, okay? And so I want you to make it specific to each person. I want a reference to their home state, some sort of landmark or famous location, appeal to their emotions, and let's communicate in a way that they know we're speaking directly to them as a client, and give us 2 to 3 sentences, okay? And so I'm taking this text, I'm going to simply copy it, and for this demonstration, just paste it right into ChatGPT. ChatGPT reads it and says, yeah, I understand what you're asking me to do. Give me the data for me to create these blurbs now. And so here's the little sample mail file. It's a mail file like many of us have used before. It's got a couple of simple demo columns: first name, last name, state, gender. We've got the age here, profession, whether they're an existing client, presence of small children, and their Pearl. Okay, so I'm just going to take that, copy it, paste it right into ChatGPT for this demo. And now it says, hey, thank you for the details. Here is the personalized call to action blurb for each person. So let me show you what it's coming up with here. For Dave, it's saying, Dave, as a tech-savvy executive and a family man in California, imagine turning business trips into family vacations with the Platinum Card. Enjoy exclusive benefits at places like Disneyland and secure your family's joyous future. Visit daverosendahl.myamex.com and elevate your travel and lifestyle experiences. Your loyalty as an existing member is our treasure. Okay, so it's using the information about me to create that blurb right there. Now for Barbara, embrace the elegance of New York, living in your golden years. As a new member of the Platinum Card family, relish exclusive access to Broadway shows and serene Central Park picnics. Discover a world of luxury at barbarasmith.myamex.com, that's the Pearl, where every moment becomes a cherished memory. Welcome to a life of refined pleasure and privilege. So you can see how the blurbs it's created here are tailored to the individual's lifestyle, their age, their interests, and it's also tying in something about their home state, right? And as I noted in the prompt when I showed that to you, I wanted it to write something that would connect emotionally, right, with the recipient and help them envision a better future with the American Express Platinum Card. So that's what it's doing here. Okay, now we're going to scroll down in this prompt file here, and now we're going to tell it how to create the hero image. Okay, it's the hero image for the direct mail piece. I want it to mirror the blurb it just created, and I want it to give the reader a sense that we know them. Okay, so use something that tells them that we know who they are, make it happy. Give me your best shot at it. I want 2 images. One that you make, ChatGPT, and then I also want you to give me instructions for another AI called Midjourney, okay? There's multiple ways to have AI create images here. I'm just going to show you natively what ChatGPT can do, and then I'm going to show you how you can feed the same information into another application that makes images as well. So here's the image, a beautiful family, wife, kids at Disneyland, and so this image is specifically designed to connect with me based on the data that's in the mail file. Now for Barbara, here she is in a kind of New York-ish landscape, right? And she's holding the card there. And now if I scroll down, I can take these prompts that it's created for me for Midjourney. This is the other application that I mentioned a moment ago that creates images. And it's a little bit wonky or a little bit more nerdy, but I take the prompts. This is basically one AI telling another AI what to do. I'm going to take those prompts, copy them in, one for Dave, one for Barbara now. And Midjourney has its own kind of syntax for conversing with it, okay? So don't worry about that for right now. I'm pasting it in, and after I paste it in, it's going to actually think and start to render 4 different options for me for each of those prompts, okay? So first, here is the set of images for Dave, and then below that, you can see it's rendering images for Barbara, okay? Now, the reason it gives you 4 options is because then you can pick one that you like, you can refine that, you can create variations. Here's what it did for Dave, okay? Another happy family, again, it's something that looks like Disneyland in the back. these people don't exist. This Barbara lady, this is not a real person. This is something that AI came up with. Here she is on a bench. Now, if I say, hey, I like to use one of these versions, but you know what, give me a couple of other options. I just click that refresh button, and here it is thinking again. I'm going to create another couple of options for you, Dave. Now I say, I like this one here for Barbara. I want to create some variations of that one for Barbara. It's going to go off and without complaining, it's going to start putting this together for me. And let's see what it comes up with. Here we go. Here's the pictures for Dave, and Barbara is starting to come into view there as well. So let's give it another second. All right, let's click on this here. These are the pictures for Dave. Another set of pictures. You can see another very happy family. Again, people that don't really exist. Kind of creepy, huh? But those are the folks there for Dave. And then for Barbara, it looks like it just finished. Let's take a look at what she looks like there. This is awesome. So again, these hero images are what we can use on the direct mail piece in tandem with the blurb, with the personalized text blurb, in order to motivate action from the recipient.
All right, folks, I want to know, what are you thinking as you see that? Please text me 949-375-4459. Text me what you're thinking, a few words there so I can see. And again, the point here is that if we believe that variable data printing, data-driven direct mail, data-driven marketing is what drives response. And if we say that VDP, in this case, is getting this brand a 0.5% response rate, which is fantastic. They're doing $250 million a month in funded loans, 0.5% response on the direct mail. What if AI doing what I just showed you were to double that response rate? Or you know what, forget about double. What if it only increased it by 10%? In this simple example, that's 25 million. You don't think you could get a piece of that by doing this and creating that kind of value? You absolutely can. That's the power of what I believe we have in our hands, and the power and the opportunity that we have, that you have as first movers to take advantage of this. Is everybody getting this? Give me a yes in the chat if you're getting this. I see somebody saying creepy. Yes, I know. Give me a yes though if you're getting this. Give me a yes. Give me a yes. Yeah, I know the art is not great with AI. I'm actually going to talk about that here in just a moment. I see that coming in. Yeah, this is wide open. Now, I know somebody here in the audience is probably thinking, how about if it's 2 million records, 1 million records? You were showing me, onesie twosies examples. Well, we've architected a way where this can be done on the fly, where it can be done in an automated fashion. Again, we don't have time to go into how all the APIs and everything work. If you want this presentation and you want to talk further about that, you've got my cell phone number, and I'm going to throw up my contact info at the end of the meeting today. But of course, like any good infomercial, right? There's more. And what happens is with this particular customer, we have QBRs, quarterly business reviews. And inevitably, as we're sitting there looking at their analytics, they're looking at their dashboards, the MindFire powered dashboards. But this could apply to any kind of analytics. A question comes up.
All right, now I want you to imagine that
Hold on. A question comes up, and inevitably, as you're looking at reports, there's somebody who asks something in that meeting for which there's no easy answer in the reports or the analytics that you've pre-prepared, right? I think you've all been in similar situations, whether that be with a customer or internal, where, you have a question about the data and everyone's like, well, you know what? We didn't run that report. I'm not sure how to answer that. Watch this.
All right, now I want you to imagine that you're at a QBR with one of your top clients. Maybe you're sitting around a conference room table, everyone's getting engaged in the data, and let's imagine that you're discussing their direct mail campaign performance. Now, there could be other use cases for this. Any use case involving data is fine. The possibilities are really limitless. So you need to just open your mind to the possibilities. In this example, you're sitting around the conference room table, you're talking about their data. Of course, you have some pre-built reports and maybe some schematics that you've shown them around how things are working within their campaign. But of course, that question always comes up that you're like, shoot, I don't have that data. I don't know the answer to that. How can you solve that now with AI? Let me show you. Imagine that this is your data here. Maybe you have this from an internal system, or maybe you're using MindFire and you're pulling data out. Some other tool set, doesn't really matter. It could be anything. In this example, let's imagine that it's raw campaign data, which shows us how many people responded to the campaign. But beyond that, we really don't know too much. So we're going to ask it. The first thing is we're going to say here, describe the data to me, okay? So it has no knowledge of what's in there. Maybe you don't either. And so it's going to come back and it's going to tell us what it sees. This data set appears to be a collection of records related to individual contacts. Uh-oh, what happened? Network error. I left this in intentionally. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But let's hit regenerate. Let's have it do it again. Sometimes ChatGPT does have a hiccup. But here it goes. It says the data you provided is organized in a table format with several columns. So it sees a contact ID column. It sees a Perl column, first name and last name, email, address, city, state, zip, country, and it's also got some additional columns. It's basically telling you what it sees in there. It says that each row appears to be a set of data points. So let's ask it a question now. Which day of the week has the most activity? Now, it's going to come back and it says, it doesn't seem that there's any valid date entries in the question column that can be converted to a date time format. So basically, it's doing like what my kids do, or God forbid, some staff where they're like, I don't know how to do this. You didn't give me enough information, Dave, or Dad in some cases, right? I'm like, all right, you know what? Don't complain. Make your best guess. Just do your best, ChatGPT. So here we go. We're not going to tell it any more than what it should be able to figure out on its own. It says it can't find the timestamp. So now it's thinking, and it says, aha, based on the timestamps that I found in the answer column of your data set, the most active day of the week appears to be Tuesday. Okay, now this is a small file, of course, just for this demo, 17 recorded activities on that day. Monday follows with 7 activities, and these findings are based on the available data in the answer column. Now, what if we want to see that in a graph? So I'm going to say, hey, please provide some graphs showing me this data. Boom. You see that? By day of the week, browser graphs. You can see what operating system they're using. So it's giving me some visualizations based on the data set. Activity by day of the week, activity by browser, and so on. Give me some more, ChatGPT. I'm never satisfied, right? So I'm going to ask it to do a few more. Here's one that shows activities by state. You can see the states down here, left to right along the bottom. And now if I'm thinking, geez, this is pretty cool, what else can you do? So, well, ChatGPT, do some more. Hello, it's not letting me push the button. Well, it wasn't done. There we go. It was still thinking. So now it came back with activities by city, activity by inbound type. And so it's giving me a bunch of data here that I can use to start to visualize other things in that file. Now, by the way, let me hit that button again right there. This is the Python code. This is the programming language, the code behind those visualizations. So folks, if you want to look smart, you can use this code yourself. If you've got developers that are telling you they can't do stuff, man, if they're not using ChatGPT or something to help them think, they're really missing out. Anywho, more visualizations coming here. You see those above. I'm going to ask it to, hey, maybe give me a graph of activity by time of day. People always want to know that. So again, I'm putting you in the mental exercise of imagining you're sitting around that conference room table. Somebody asks a question. You haven't built a graph. You don't know how to answer that question. Well, now connecting this kind of technology to your data set can be queried just as if you were talking to a friend, asking them a question. The better you get at asking those questions, the better the data that's going to come back to you. I hope this inspires you, friends.
Give me a few words there in my text. What do you think based on what you saw? I want you to envision a future very nearby where, yes, you have graphs and you have analytics like what you see here on the screen, but I also want you to envision a chat interface on the bottom or on the right-hand side where you just ask it questions, where you just ask it a question, like what day of the week are best for me to mail to get in home when my call center is working, right? If you're a brand that has a call center responsive. If you want to know like what mail file attributes are driving the most leads, or what do I need to do to get the most leads on the weekend when it's raining? There's all sorts of opportunities that I think you can start to imagine that conversational analytics, conversational AI on top of your data sets for you and for your customers are going to drive immense value. So there, folks, we've looked at two ways. Just one snapshot, one way that you can make your people, make yourself supercharged, right? And the second, a way that you could supercharge your product or service. Again, focused on direct mail, but the applications for what I'm showing you are really innumerate, limitless. I want you to think about this. My first job, actually the only one of 2 times that I worked for anybody else, I worked for Blockbuster Video. Who remembers Blockbuster? I'm sure everybody has a a good memory, hopefully a Blockbuster, maybe some late fees that you accrued there. But the point is, today, I think there's only one Blockbuster left. If I recall correctly, I saw a Netflix documentary or something. They're gone, right? What happened? I would humbly argue to you that they didn't know the business that they were in. They thought they were in the video rental business when in fact, I think they were in the entertainment distribution business. And there are many examples like this throughout history where companies misunderstand the market that they're in. Many of the print companies I speak to think they are printing companies, and that might be what they want to do. But I actually think you're a communications company. And I think that if you change the way you look at what you do, that you have the opportunity here, folks, all of you around this room right now, have the opportunity to be a first mover in using AI for your staff and using AI for some sort of AI-generated, AI-powered personalized communication or personalized service, something that taps into the power of AI. Now, if this is like, gosh, my mind is blown, I don't know where to start, this seems like a lot of technology, I am here to help. That's why I've given you my number. I'm happy to speak with you one-on-one. I'm happy to speak to your teams, do a similar presentation like this. If you want me to motivate them, if you want me to scare them, whatever you want me to do, I'm happy to help you, to brainstorm with you, to train your team, not trying to sell you anything, just trying to help, because I believe that there is that fork in the road right now that some of you are going to choose to take a step forward in. I want to give you some closing thoughts and then we're going to do questions, okay? So in the chat, if you have a question, if you've got something rolling around in your head, put your first name and then the question so I can address you when we get to the Q&A here in just 1 minute, all right? A few closing thoughts. First of all, I don't know what I don't know, and I'm sure I'm wrong about some things here, but there are a few things I think I know for sure. First of all, if this technology scares you, or it scares your people, or it scares our people, technology doesn't care what you or I think. It's going to happen regardless. It doesn't give a hoot about how I feel about it. Second, I know I'm wrong about some of the stuff that I'm prognosticating, but I know that I'm right about some of it because the clues are there. Also, and I saw this in my text, somebody said some of the AI images aren't that great. I want you to remember this, folks. This is the worst. This is the worst that AI will ever be in terms of its user experience, in terms of its functionality. This is the worst it will ever be. It's only going to get better. I think that it's likely that the way we're talking with our AI now, whether it be through voice-activated communication, I use ChatGPT on my phone and I sit there and I talk to it or I type to it. I think that's the next user interface. I think it's the next human to computer interface, like an operating system, right? Right now you have to point and click, right? I think this is the next one. And you may think I'm weird, or you may agree with me, but I think this is the most important technology humanity has created to date. Yes, there are downsides to it. Yes, there are many scary facets of it. I do speak on that as well. That's for another conversation. What I want you to leave today with are some new insights around how you could leverage it for the good of yourself and for your company. In terms of this statement that I made, in terms of AI being the worst it's ever going to be, I don't know if you can see this in the lower right-hand corner. This is Sam Altman saying GPT-4, which is the current version of ChatGPT, the technology under ChatGPT, is the dumbest model any of you will ever have to use. And you know what? ChatGPT-4, GPT-4 is already ranking in the top 10% of test takers if you compare how it can do against humans across a number of professional standards, including the bar exam. It's in the top decile. And here is Sam saying, this is the worst it's ever going to be. All right. So now I want to open up for questions. I am going to throw up my cell phone number once again. This is to connect with me on LinkedIn there on the left-hand side. If you want to point your camera and it'll load LinkedIn there to connect. There's my email there as well. If you want the slides, if you have follow-up questions, I'm happy to take those. I'm going to go ahead and look now at the questions that are here in the chat. Brian, first of all, how's the room looking? How's everyone feeling right now?
Kind of looking like the end of the day is approaching, but everybody's hanging in there pretty good.
Okay, good. I see a question here from Russell saying, do you use ChatGPT to find the other AI programs? No, Russell, I don't. You know, we do R&D, so we're looking at a bunch of things, out there talking to a lot of folks, clients, partners, vendors, et cetera. So I don't think that AI has turned me on to too many other things other than, for example, like when I have one AI provide data for another AI, like ChatGPT to Midjourney. So most of these are found through firsthand experience. I see somebody saying that anything that helps me look smart is a good thing. Yep. Understood. Brian, let's do some other questions there. Anybody else have questions?
Anyone have any questions?
I
Here's
just
one.
wanted to say, I was just, putting in for our salespeople or basic functions, ask ChatGPT, best practices for sales professionals. It just rips off 10 things that are very logical. So
Yep.
You can just say, there you go. And I think that, again, is your QR code on your business card, is that like 666, the mark of the devil? I mean, it really is scary. There's no doubt about it. You're not disagreeing with me.
No, I'm not.
Oh.
Well, I'm not. My QR code is not the mark of the beast, but yes, there are some scary potential futures here. Yes. Agreed. But I tend to be the optimist, and I also tend to say that, like I said, what's that?
What about where the ChatGPT for where the Fed is going to do with interest rates? Or obviously this is all post-predictive in a way, right?
Yep.
Take existing information and.
Yeah, I mean, for analysis purposes, looking at numerous data sets and coming up with predictions, what it can't do well yet in version 4, but that will change in 5 and beyond, is come up with new insights. So if you think about what AI can do well right now, it's not doing things like the way Newton created, Newton's laws and understood physics. It's not creating necessarily new insights like that are driving humanity forward by creating, a new theory of everything, as an example. But I suspect that it's going to. And so a question like yours, I don't know. I think it's just going to continue to get better.
I think the ChatGPT, it's working off of how current is the information, because it's not live right now, is it?
It's not. I think it's through the end of 2023, but it has the ability to access the web. So if you give it a URL or if you give it a link or something, it will go and read that information. But they're updating it every so often. I think it's 5 or 6 months behind at this point.
Yeah.
What else, folks?
Anything else, guys?
Was this helpful? I can see you now. Give me some thumbs up. Was it helpful? I know you're tired. I know it's the end of the day. I know it could be a little scary. Okay. Good.
Really?
Anybody? Any last call? Any questions?
Dave, thank you very much.
My pleasure, folks. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Brian. And please don't hesitate to reach out if I can be of service to anybody. Thank you all for your time. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Dave.
You got it.